It's not about giving the guests what you think they want. That's simple. Titillation, horror, elation. They're parlor tricks. The guests don't return for the obvious things we do, the garish things. They come back because of the subtleties, the details. They come back because they discover something they imagined no one had ever noticed before. Something they fall in love with.
All right, today we're going to be talking about Westworld, the TV show, and in particular, there is one scene that is stuck in my mind for many years after it, because I haven't seen the show in probably like 5 or 6 years or more, and the particular scene in question is between Theresa Cullen and Dr. Ford. And this particular scene is filled with just this absolute gripping tension and character dynamics, and just everything is just coming into play where these two characters are coming head to head. And what starts off as a normal conversation quickly turns into something completely, there's like this reveal, this twist that just completely flips the rest of the show on its head, because now you're wanting to see what this one character will do. What is possible for this one character? What can they do? And how is this going to change everything from here? Because what you have is you have one character you think you know enough about them, but then everything changes and they're more powerful and more smarter than anything you could ever really imagine from here. And it's just this, it is a beautifully well crafted scene. And what I wanted to talk about specifically for this is, how does this get created? Because we all have in our heads these awesome moments that get created in shows and TVs and everything like that. But the question is, what does it do? How do you get there? So for the world of Westworld, some backstory on this. It is a Western world, as it were. It's kind of an adult theme park where you have a group of people who are called the hosts. And the hosts are the robots that work here. Essentially the NPCs. These are the people who play the villagers, the farm girl, the bandits. They can play good guys and bad guys, the people who will help you along. And there's all these little different stories inside of Westworld. There's a treasure hunt, where this guy's like, come on, let's go find buried treasure. And maybe they try and stab you in the back. Or there's a hero you want to go rescue. You want to stop the bank robbers. You want to go save the girl. You want to, all these different things, all these different stories come into play. And the idea is that you can come along as a guest. You can come along and play these roles, because the hosts can't actually hurt the guests in any way. And it gives this kind of just this bizarre freedom, because you're living in a world without real consequences. You can do whatever you want, and it can get pretty dark. And so one of the hosts in question is a girl named Dolores, and she's a farm girl, and kind of her role largely is she's this kind of damsel in distress, where she can get there. You can come along and you can kill her father and kill her lover and then rescue her, or probably not rescue her in that case, but there's a number of different things like this. And what happens though at the end of it is, every time all the hosts are killed or anything like that, there's this day and night cycle where everything gets pulled back, they get cleaned up, they get put back together for the guests to handle. And this is the second group. The guests themselves are the people who pay to attend the park, and these are wealthy people or anything like that who are looking to explore the darker side of anything like that. They have any sort of options that they can do, and the hosts cater to them. The hosts are interested in them, they're attracted to them, they're trying to pull them along each individual story. So when you find yourself, the hosts come and they're trying to recruit you basically for their individual story from there. And so it's this bizarre, really cool idea. It gets really dark, obviously, but from there. And then the third group is the employees. These are the people who work and maintain the park. So in that day-night cycle, when the hosts and all the robots are broken apart, the employees work and they keep it all running. So they're making the stories, they're fixing the robots, they're programming. There's this constant feedback loop and they're trying to fix it and make it better. And one of the lead programmers that works on this is a fellow named Bernard. He's one of the characters we'll be talking about today. And as a character, he stands a little bit apart from the rest of the employees, because he's actually fairly calm and quiet and kind. He comes across as a very caring man from here. And this is interesting because you can see the horrors that go on in the park, rape, murder, all these different abuse, all these different things come into play here. But Bernard seems a little bit more above it. Now, Bernard has a secret lover relationship with the character in question we're going to be talking about today, which is Theresa. Theresa is one of the heads of one of the other departments, and she is absolutely brutally capable. She is quick-witted, she is incredibly smart, dynamic, she's a force to be reckoned with, but she's not really likable. This is the thing. She's not necessarily sold to us as a likable character. She's not, wide-eyed, schoolgirl, this naivety or anything like that you could expect from normal main characters like Luke Skywalker or Harry Potter or anything like that. She doesn't have that. She's not necessarily a good person, because what she's involved in is making sure the park runs and the guests get whatever they want, and there's this overhanging darkness about people who make that happen. And from there, and so what this does is this unlikability creates a distance from the audience, so we're not really rooting for her, and that'll come into play a little bit later. And the next character, the final character that we're going to be really diving into, is Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford now is one of the co-founders and the brilliant mind who helped create the entire Westworld from here. He's a character who, he programmed it, he was there in the beginning, and he's this enigmatic, mysterious, older man played by Anthony Hopkins, so he's going to be brilliant from here. But you can kind of see that there is a difference between him and the rest of the employees, maybe except for Bernard from there, because he's after something a little bit more than everyone else. Everyone else, it's large. You can see it's an impact. It's a job. We're here to maintain the park as part of a job. This is what we're paid a lot of money for. For Dr. Ford, though, he's searching for something more. He's searching for art, a more perfect host. Consciousness. He keeps going on and on about consciousness and all these other things from here. And you can really get the idea that he actually likes the hosts, the robots themselves, more than people. He likes them more than the other people from there. And so there's this aloof distance about the character because we don't really know much about him. He kind of plays his cards close to his chest. You don't really see too much that comes into play here. And so this is kind of the interesting aspect, is that kind of with Theresa and with Dr. Ford is they play almost like these soft antagonists or more like bad protagonists from there. Because, again, they're keeping all this running and continually inflicting this on the hosts. All of these horrors are inflicted upon the hosts, all this abuse and everything like that. And they, of course, are kind of like, it's another Tuesday and everything from here. And so this contrast with the main characters. And so what you have is you have a kind of a distance between both of these characters. We really like Bernard. We really like, he's kind of our moral compass, as it were. And he likes Theresa. So it's kind of like you can see this introduction from here. But then you get the difference between Theresa and Dr. Ford specifically is Theresa's much more impacted by the board and money. And Dr. Ford is kind of above it all, in it for the art. Theresa represents more of the new blood in the company who's trying to make sure everything is run efficiently, make sure, the board is happy, make sure the profit margins are up, make sure the hosts are happy. There is this very practical aspect from there. She's not really she's not in pursuit of consciousness or any sort of greater art or anything like there. And in the show, as we'll see it play out between even Bernard and Theresa, there's this interdepartmental rivalry where all the departments are kind of cutthroat and kind of going at each other, which is very true from any corporate world. You can kind of get this. This is what makes it feel like a real company is this cutthroat from here. So Theresa is going to have this conversation with Dr. Ford. Now we kind of got our backstory. Theresa's going to go meet with Dr. Ford because Ford is creating this new narrative from here. And everyone's super excited because, Dr. Ford hasn't done anything in a while. He kind of just sits in his office as far as most people are concerned, pushing out strange code that kind of maybe causes things to go wrong from here. And so he's got a new narrative. And what this means, though, is all the characters, they have a limited number of robots. Who's going to play the role for each robot? What are they going to do? And they have to recycle all these. So when you pull characters for a new narrative, you're disrupting and ruining everything for the old narrative. And this is, she's going to come and help correct the course because it's causing a lot of disruption. And disruption is bad because the guests might notice that something is off. And if the guests notice that something is off, it ruins the immersion and everything like that. You can kind of see it from there. So now, with all of this in mind, with this character dynamic in mind, one thing I wanted to introduce is kind of this effect that I kind of see and play in the world and a few things. And what I call it is 125 9000. And so it's a rhythm. So what you do is you set a rhythm and an expectation with the audience with 1. You set it from here. So this is what we're expecting. We're going to get a 1. And then we're going to build upon the 1 with a 2. So it's doubling, even more impactful. And I'll give you guys a concrete example in a little bit. And then 5. So what you're doing is it's unexpectedly pulling the audience along. It's still within the realm of understanding because 1, 2, 5. Okay, we can I guess we can see where it's going from here. But it really breaks the expectation and kind of jars them and throws them off kilter. And then comes the final punch, which is 9,000, which is where you blow their mind completely away from here. And this is something that we kind of see in magic where the trick actually turns into magic, where you kind of have this understanding of, okay, we understand how a level 1 trick is, for lack of a better word. So this is kind of your pick a card, any card. This is your level 1. And what they're going to do is throughout the course of this, they're going to find that card in the deck. And it's like, okay, cool. I can understand. We've all seen these tricks. So we kind of understand that this is kind of how this trick works. And so then now what you do, you set expectations. This is kind of the realm we're operating in. So now we're going to go to a level 2. A level 2 is, maybe take this card and we're going to do it again. You're going to pick another card, or I'm going to pick that same card, but instead I'm not going to touch the deck at all. You're going to touch the deck. So what it does is it's building upon it's building on the previous expectation for the audience. And it really, though, it keeps pushing the envelope because we can kind of understand how 1 is done, and maybe 2 we can kind of understand. But now we're going to throw them off kilter with a 5. We're going to really throw them off balance. They're not going to really have an idea. They're going to hold this card, and I'm going to turn this card into another card. It was a 6 of clubs, and now I'm going to turn it into the 3 of hearts or something like that. You're really doing is they're understanding, okay, maybe you held it up your sleeve, maybe you did this, maybe that. You have this kind of conception in your head of how the trick could be done, and now you're really throwing it off. The 5 of hearts or anything like that. We're going to turn this card into that. And then we get to 9,000. And this is where you completely blow them away because they have no idea how you could possibly do this. And this one is a great example for David Blaine's. He's showing off for Harrison Ford, and he tells them to pick a fruit, pick an orange or anything like that, and then cut it open, and let's see if your card is inside there. And Harrison Ford has this general, WTF face on his expression on his face throughout the entirety of it, because he's just like, how on earth did you do that? 1, how did you know it was my card? 2, how did you know I was going to pick that fruit? 3, how did you get it in there? How did you get it in my house? It really does is it starts pushing the boundary for what your expectations are for what a trick. And this is where the trick turns into magic, because while we kind of had an understanding of how 1 trick was done, a 2 trick was done, and 5 trick was done, anything like that, we kind of have an idea, but 9,000 completely overshadowed. We just have no idea. It's from here. And so the idea with this is we want to take the same rhythm and apply it to a story. We're going to apply it to characters from here. And now, one thing I wanted to talk about is this idea of power levels that we kind of come into play. And so with Theresa, and this is more of you can think of it as a competency level from here. So Theresa is able to get whatever she wants. And this is a useful attribute. And this is something, she's someone to be feared, and everyone knows this. She gets what she wants. She's the head of the department. She's very smart. She's very cunning. She does not hold back. She doesn't even hold back against Bernard. You have all this dynamics coming into play. She's very fierce and very powerful. So what you have is we kind of have a mental note of how scary, how capable of a character she is. She's cunning. She's very intelligent. We have all this. And so this level in our head, this mental level in our head is going up against an unknown. And this unknown, of course, is Dr. Ford from here, because we don't know what he's necessarily capable of. We don't know, because there's a lot of forces in the company that are working against him. There's a lot of movement for, he's a relic of the past. He doesn't understand the new direction that Westworld is going. Nobody really seems to understand about what it takes to run the park. And so now we get to the scene, of course, the scene in question where Theresa is coming to talk with Dr. Ford to get what she wants. And so we're doing this mental balancing act or comparison act to try and figure out who's going to come out ahead. Because, Theresa has all of this understanding and baggage that we know about. We can see what she's capable of. And so the two of them are sitting in this beautiful little restaurant. It's an open air one. And there's the fields of, I don't know, agave. I don't really know whatever they're farming from here. And what we have is we're building this tension and this dynamic. This is what has all these factors have come into play.
Arnold always held a somewhat dim view of people. He preferred the hosts. He begged me not to let you people in. the money men, Delos. But I told him we'd be fine, that you didn't understand what you were paying for. It's not a business venture, not a theme park, but an entire world. We designed every inch of it. Every blade of grass. In here we were gods, and you were merely our guests.
From here. So this is kind of what I want you guys to think about is coming into play here. We have this power dynamic. We have this background dynamic with two potential, largely antagonist figures or soft protagonists or gray protagonists. You can kind of calculate them, call them whatever you want from here. And what they're doing is they're setting up and they're chatting and anything like this. And so what we're building towards is, of course, this showdown. Who's going to get what they want? Is Theresa going to be able to, correct Dr. Ford, because she represents the new direction the company is taking. She has the board behind her. He is this kind of relic and outlier who needs to be focused more on his legacy. You need to deal more with your legacy from here. And what she's doing is she's thinking about, when you're gone, / ... Maybe you can tell me about when you're leaving from here. They're trying to prepare for when you're gone, when we can kind of look at replacing you, all these different things. And of course, Dr. Ford is just like, my legacy. And you can really see that it's really hard to figure out where he's coming from. And this is the great thing about this unknown, because we have a known entity and known power level of Theresa coming up into play and gets this guy. We have no idea what he's doing. And this is where he kind of begins this conversation that we'll see play out ahead of us.
I've always seen things very clearly.
This is the table I sat at with my parents. This is the chair I sat in.
We know everything about our guests, don't we? As we know everything about our employees. I do hope you will be careful with Bernard. There have been many of you over the years, and we have almost always found a way to make it work. So I will ask you nicely, please, don't get in my way.
And it's this incredibly chilling situation where you can see Dr. Ford is looking out of here and he's like, get out of my way. Don't stand in my way. And it's just this. And what we see here is that everything is under his control. And you had, previously we had all this inferences and understanding that the hosts were going rogue on, these things where they're doing strange things and nobody seems to be able to figure it out. But then this is contrasted in this moment where Dr. Ford is completely in control. He's absolutely in control of everything, seemingly without word. He's just able to do this, he just pauses and suddenly everything freezes. The birds stop. And so this is what's coming into play. This is all this tension that's building up from here. And this is what he uses to stand up against Theresa. They're moving. All these forces against him are moving. The board and all this is moving against him. And again, think of this in terms of 1, 2, 5. We have her moving against him. Okay, we have all this intrigue going on, this power dynamics. 1, 2, we're understanding what's going on. We have 5. She's essentially making a soft move, to figure out where he is and push him in the right direction. And then suddenly we have this 9,000 flip from here, where you see exactly what Dr. Ford is capable of. There's that great idea or that great scene with a wine glass where they're just pouring wine out and it begins to dribble, and that's when you first notice that, hey, nobody's making any sound, nothing's moving, the birds aren't even chirping, and the wine begins to pour on the floor. And Theresa's realized at this point, I'm pretty sure I was sitting in this chair as a child, and he has these wonderful, wonderful lines of, we know everything about our guests. And you can really see it, just this complete flip, because we thought he was human. We thought he was on the side of the human, but now we don't know what he's after, what he's going for. He doesn't care. He doesn't seem to care about the board. He doesn't care about these profit margins. He doesn't care about maintaining the balance or anything like that. This is such a good line that, we know everything about our guests. From here, and this is the thing that it makes this scene so good, is that we had all these expectations, the power level, the power dynamics, everything in play, we thought we knew what the direction was for the characters, and he just completely flips it on his head. And even more so, it keeps digging where he's like, do be gentle with Bernard. So you get this understanding that, oh, he knows. He knows about the secret relationship between Theresa and Bernard that no one else in the entire company knows. And it's just this beautiful, beautiful, brilliantly crafted scene. You know, we have this idea, you know, mental note of a power level of right about here or something. Bernard, Dr. Four, we realize, is way up here. It's like kind of like suddenly having like a subtle Gandalf or Dumbledore that you thought it was this bumbling old person. And then suddenly you step into it and you realize that, oh no, this is someone who is to be reckoned with from here. And this great reveal. And the thing that's awesome with this is now we get to ask the question or get to see, now what? What's going to happen in the rest of the season? I have to now see what the rest of the season is on about. And this is what is done so well for this, is that now we get to see it play out before us. We get to see and go, okay, now what does the rest of the season hold? And so this really impacts all the rest of the show from here, the remaining aspect of the show, because we can't wait to see what Dr. Ford's going to do here. What else has he got for us from here? So... but yeah, and I never actually got around to watching anything beyond season 1 because, again, season 1 is just phenomenal. So season 2 and 3 and 4, I never really cared for from there. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about kind of my thoughts and all of this coming from here. So please like and comment in about your favorite scene from here, kind of what you enjoyed, what you like to see, and what more you'd like to see in the upcoming videos. So yeah, it helps a lot. It helps a lot. It's a small thing, but it helps a lot for these smaller channels. So I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.